Today I'm going to be walking you through the steps of installing the CarTech Studio wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto module to your factory 8.4 inch UConnect unit. We are in a 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Removal of the unit, the factory unit, is fairly straightforward. However, there are some basic first steps we need to cover that are sometimes overlooked, and I've also seen people perform this with the power connected, so I want to address that. Always disconnect the battery. If you're working on this model Jeep, the battery is going to be underneath the passenger seat, so adjust the seat to the far forward position and disconnect the negative cable from the negative battery terminal first. Second thing is, please wear hand protection. Put on some sort of gloves. Anytime you're manipulating the plastic and the trim inside any vehicle, these can have some unfinished and very sharp edges, and it's sort of similar to a paper cut if you try to do it without gloves. And we don't want to bleed all over the inside of the car, so let's just avoid that from the get-go. So first of all, no tools necessary to remove this outer trim. We're just going to slide this access panel back. Place your fingers underneath the trim. Pull forward, giving some force, but being also aware of the distance on each side. We want to remove it in a uniform fashion. Pull that trim piece back just far enough so that you can reach the hazard indicator wiring harness. Disconnect that harness, place to the side. You can observe here the back of the trim. In this model, the clips are bright orange. You can see there's 4 near the bezel of the screen, 4 at the bottom. Place this trim panel to the side and out of the way. Now we're going to remove your factory 8.4 inch UConnect system. There are 4 7mm screws that attach the system to the dash. Prior to removing them, I recommend placing a towel down on the center console and around the shifter. That way, if it makes contact with any of the interior panels, it won't scratch or damage your screen. Now that we've removed the 4 7mm screws that attach the UConnect system to the dash, we can remove this Harman infotainment unit and observe the antenna connections on the back as well as the primary power harness. Disconnect each of your antennas, and this will actually give you a little more wiggle room. To manipulate this primary harness from the back of the unit. Observe on this side, you'll push and lift to release the unit from the harness. Now we're ready to connect the primary wiring harness that came in the CarTech Studio kit. Locate the vehicle's factory harness, connect the male to the female end that came with the kit. Align this edge. Check your connection and make sure it's secure. Now take the auxiliary end, the auxiliary connection from the opposite end, plug that in here. This is optional, but I prefer to tape these connections like such. Earlier, I routed the microphone that's included with the kit around the dash and over near the steering column. I will fasten that to the trim with the 3M double adhesive tape that's already on the back of the mic. I also routed this optional piece, which is the trigger, that allows you to access the Android Auto primary menu in the CarPlay primary menu to adjust the advanced settings of the module. After removing the tape and the shrink tubing, plug this into the trigger. Again, I recommend a little bit of tape to keep this secure going forward. This trigger shouldn't be necessary, but I installed it for troubleshooting, or if the driver prefers to use this when operating the vehicle. Use the included Wi-Fi antenna and thread that on to the wireless module. The module is labeled microphone input. Now we take our primary cable for power, connect that to the back. take our wired CarPlay and wired Android Auto USB cable and connect that to the USB port on the back of the module. This also, like the trigger, was routed into the dash and down to this cubby area where other factory ports exist. Take the wireless module and this length of harness and begin tucking that in to the dash cavity. Try to do it in a uniform fashion so you can keep up with what goes where. Remember, our LVDS cable that is already attached to the factory unit will connect here, so we don't want this to travel too far away or get too cumbersome to handle. Take the LVDS cable, connect it to the wireless module. Feed this cable into the cavity so it's out of the way. On the back of the factory unit, take the new CarTech harness, slide the male into the female ends, make sure it's fully seated. Check your connection, make sure it's nice and flush all the way around. Don't want to get in a hurry with these things. Take those factory antennas, reconnect them. After again putting a little more of this harness in the dash so it's out of the way. Start with the one at the bottom. Really short guy. Yellow one. These are color coded, very difficult to confuse which goes where. Double check, make sure everything is seated. Okay. Now, check once more for clearance behind the dash for all your cabling. bottom we need to address. And just want to do some cable management. Slide the factory unit back into its original position, lining up those 4 7mm screw holes. Collect your screws and get them started by hand. What I prefer. Fasten all 4 screws. Continuing to monitor your cables so that nothing is pinching or binding or maybe exposed to the trim clips when we reinstall the trim. Retrieve the trim piece that we removed earlier in the video. Locate the hazard connection. Pay attention to the orientation. There's a groove here on the side. Connect that. That wire isn't particularly long enough that you have to worry about it pinching or getting in the way. Align the clips. Pay attention to your clips. There's 4 across the top, but you also have this little guide point as well that lines up at the top of the factory head unit. If we use that as a good marker for the rest of them. Make sure all the clips fasten and everything is seated and flush. And now we're on to testing the unit and the wireless module, making sure they cooperate and communicate and going through the initial setup steps. But first, we must reconnect the battery negative terminal. When you start your vehicle after installing the trim piece and connecting all the wiring harnesses, make sure you locate the 3.5mm aux plug that is included with the CarTech Studio kit. Plug this in to your factory auxiliary port. And also verify for audio to work correctly from the wireless module that from the factory screen you've selected aux in your media menu. The Cherokee has the unique feature of being able to switch from the factory interface to the wireless interface by using the one small button on the left-hand side of the steering wheel. But remember, we've also installed the manual trigger down here, the remote trigger. So you can press and hold that for about 3 seconds and switch between both interfaces. And also that wired connection. It's your preference, wired or wireless. What you want to make sure of is that your phone, whether it's an Android or an Apple device, you want to make sure that your Wi-Fi is on, but that you are not connected to any networks. So if you're like me and you're at home, your phone or your tablet or whatever you're using, it's probably already connected to your home network. So what you want to do is go into your Wi-Fi settings. Do not turn Wi-Fi off, simply disconnect from your home network. Also, for your Bluetooth, make sure your Bluetooth is turned on your phone, but that you're not currently playing audio, or connected to any other devices during this initial setup. You want to look for Auto Smart Link. Find Auto Smart Link. Click to pair. After pairing successful, a prompt will appear. Click to use Android Auto. Check pairing codes. Welcome to Android Auto. Android Auto should automatically appear. If not, reset your network settings, your Wi-Fi, and your Bluetooth on your wireless device. Turn off the vehicle, turn it back on again, restart your phone, and attempt to connect again. Now we are going to explore some of what Android Auto has to offer.